Good day. Today we are going to discuss about experimental and non-experimental design. So an experimental research design is an attempt by the researcher to maintain control over all factors that may affect the result of an experiment. In doing this, the researcher attempts to determine or predict what may occur. Experimental design is a blueprint of the procedure that enables the researcher to test his or her hypothesis by reaching valid conclusions about relationships between independent and dependent variables. We do experimental research in order for us to attain our goal, to identify and test our hypothesis. In each research design or in each experimental research design, we need to follow some steps. So the first one is to identify and define the problem. Looking into your topic that you have loved most, you're able to come up with a good research problem. From that, we can formulate your hypothesis. After that, you can come up with a good plan for your experiment. Once you have your plan, you may now conduct your experiment. From this experiment, you are going to compile all raw data and reduce to a usable form. Once you have all the necessary data that you have, then you may apply appropriate test of significance. Once you have that, you can now conclude. We need to take note of these essential parts of our experimental research. Let's take note that only independent variables can be manipulated. All variables except the dependent variable are held constant. Hindi dapat nababago. Manipulation of the dependent variable by the independent variable should always be observed. In simple saying, a variable in research simply refers to a person, place, thing, or phenomenon that you are trying to measure in some way. Let's take this sentence. The independent variable causes a change in the dependent variable, and it is not possible that the dependent variable could cause a change in the independent variable. Ang tangi lang nating pwedeng baguhin ay ang independent variable. Lahat ng mga pagbabagong magaganap sa dependent variable, ito ay dahil sa independent variable. There are three types of variables: controlled, dependent, and independent. In the controlled variable, it is the thing that we want to remain constant. Hindi pwedeng magbago. And must observe them carefully as the dependent variable. Bakit? Kasi nga hindi pwedeng magbago ang controlled variable. The dependent variable always depends on the other factors that are measured. The dependent variable will always be dependent to the independent variable. Whatever changes that we do in the independent variable, it will cause change to the dependent variable. The independent variable, on the other hand, is stable and unaffected by any other variables that you are trying to manipulate. This is the variable that we want to manipulate. Lahat ng pwede nating baguhin ay gagawin natin sa independent variable. Let's have this example. And the question, how much water flows through a faucet at different openings? What will be the independent variable, the dependent variable, and the controlled variables. We say independent variable, but you want to change. Pag sinabing dependent variable, what you observe or what changes happen. When we say controlled variables, what you keep the same. Hindi pwedeng magbago. So what is the independent variable for this question? The water faucet opening. So we can have closed, half open, or fully open. So what changes that you are going to observe? Of course, the amount of water flowing measured in liters per minute. So yung pagdaloy ng tubig, depende kung ang faucet ay nakasara, kalahating bukas, o nakabukas ng todo. Controlled variables, ibig sabihin, yung mga hindi pwedeng magbago o kailangang pare-parehas sa lahat ng oras. Number one, the faucet. So, you're going to use the same faucet for closed, for half open, and fully open. Hindi pa pwedeng yung closed ay faucet mo sa banyo. Hindi pwedeng pag half open, faucet mo sa lababo. At pag fully open, sa garden. So, kailangan kung saan ka nag-test, doon ka lang gamit ng faucet. Another controlled variable is the water pressure or how much the water is pushing. So kailangan pare-parehas, kaya kailangan parehas din ng lugar kung saan ka mag-experiment. Kasi maaaring magkakaiba ang pressure sa banyo, lababo, garden, o sa itaas ng inyong bahay. Another variable is that the different water pressure might also cause different amounts of water to flow, and different faucets may have or may behave differently. So to ensure a fair test, you want to keep the water pressure and the faucet the same for each faucet opening that you test. Let's have another example. Does heating water allow it to dissolve more sugar? That's the independent variable. The temperature of the water measured in degrees Celsius. This is the one that we are going to change. Varying temperature. What will be the dependent variable? The amount of sugar that dissolves completely, which is measured in grams. What are we going to keep the same? Number one, stirring. So kung 10 beses mong hinalo mula dun sa una, kailangan 10 beses mo ding hahaluin sa mga susunod mong trial. Type of sugar. If you use refined sugar, yung brown sugar, or muscovado, kailangan pare-parehas din. More stirring might also increase the amount of sugar that dissolves, and the different sugar might dissolve in different amounts. So we need to ensure that all are the same. Moving on in our discussion, there are different types of experimental research. We have pre-experimental, true experimental, and quasi-experimental. In the pre-experimental, we have to take note that this has no random assignment. Ibig sabihin, hindi natin kailangan ng magkakaiba na sample na kukunin natin randomly. Ibig sabihin, pwede tayong pumili kung sino ang ating gagawing sample or pwede tayong pumili kung ano at ilan ang ating magiging sample. Example, halimbawa, ng pre-experimental design ay ang one-shot case study. Meron din tayong tinatawag na one-group pre-test, post-test design. And meron din tayong static group comparison. Sa one-shot study, one-shot case study, ay meron tayong independent variable at dependent variable. Dito, sa one-shot case study, ay magkakaroon ng experiment. Pagkatapos nun ay oobserbahan natin kung ano ang mangyayari. One-shot case study. Sa one group pre-test post-test design, oobserbahan mo muna bago gawin ang experiment. Tapos, i-conduct mo na ang experiment at oobserbahan kung ano ang mangyayari pagkatapos. Sa static group comparison, magkakaroon ka ng experimental group at control group. Sa experimental group, ay igagawin mo ang pagbabago sa independent variable at i-observe mo kung ano ang mangyayari sa dependent variable. Sa control group naman, ay wala kang ibang gagawin kung hindi obserbahan lang ang variable na iyong ginamit. Let's go to true experimental design. Let's take note that in the true experimental design, we need to have random assignment, giving us a non-biased experiment. Kasi bibilangin natin kung ilan ang ating magiging sample at kukumputin din kung sino or ilan ang magiging sample natin. Ang mga halimbawa ng true experimental design ay ang pre-test, post-test control group design, ang post-test only control group design, at ang Solomon 4 group design. Sa pre-test, post-test control group design ay tinatawag na classical experimental design, kung saan meron tayong experimental at control group na merong pre-test at post-test. Sa experimental group, mangyayari ay oobserbahan mo muna ang iyong variable, ikakandak mo ang experiment, at magkakaroon ka ng post-test. Balik tayo. So sa control group design ng pre-test, post-test control group design ay meron tayong observation sa pre-test, ngunit hindi ka magagawa ng experiment sa control group at oobserbahan mo din pagkatapos mong mag-experiment sa experimental group. Sabihin, magkakaroon ka ng post-test sa parehas na experimental at control group design. Sa post-test only control group design naman, meron ka rin namang dalawang group, the experimental at control group. Pero walang pre-test na mangyayari. You will conduct already the experiment and you will observe what will happen. In the control group, you will do nothing but observe after the time that you have done the experiment for the experimental group design. The last type of the true experimental design is the Solomon 4 group design or the Banduras design. It is simply a combination of the two, the pre-test, post-test control group, and the post-test only control group design. Kung saan meron kang dalawang experimental at dalawang control group, dalawang control groups. The quasi-experimental, we need to answer this first. Is random assignment used? If yes, then we are going to use randomized or the pre-experimental. Yes, we are going to use the true experimental. If no, is there a control group or multiple measures? Kapag yes, quasi-experimental ang gagamitin. Kapag no, non-experimental ang ating gagamitin. I'll discuss later what's non-experimental. Let's proceed to quasi-experimental. Quasi-experimental is similar to the experimental design but lacks the key ingredient, the random assignment. Sabihin, pwede tayong pumili kung ilan at kung sino ang magiging sample natin. Easily and more frequently implemented, extensively used in the social sciences, a useful method for measuring social variables. So if you are going to have social science experiment, then we will use quasi-experimental design. For the non-experimental research, research is in which the experimenter does not have complete control group the conditions over the conditions of the study. Researchers gives up some control in order to get the data, which means that the research is co-relational. Examples of non-experimental research. So we have surveys. Generally ask subjects to report their attitudes, opinions, perceptions, or behaviors. Survey may be conducted via phone, mail, or through personal contact with the subjects. The most common data collection method used in survey research are questionnaires and interviews. Careful recording and record keeping is done through observational research. The observational research distinguishes naturalistic observation from causal observation, and we use variety of measures safeguarding the privacy of the participants. Another type of non-experimental research is using the archival research. We use existing records or data in this type of research. So maghahanap tayo sa mga library, sa mga records sa PSA or sa Philippine Statistics Authority na mga data na ating makakailanganin. But we have a potential problem for this. You are at the mercy of whoever collected the data. They may or may not ask what you need to know. The records could also be biased kasi hindi nga ikaw yung gumawa ng data recording. And the last type of non-experimental research is a case study. Here, studying a unique individual person, situation, or event, and we use multiple sources of information often focused on a practical problem or pressing issues. So these are the non-experimental research. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you have learned something. Thank you and good day.